Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Fighters, Coaches, and Fathers. It is my pleasure to have Mr. Tom O'Connor on the show today. Tom, congratulations on your featherweight title win at XFFC. Man, that must have been quite a night.
Yeah, thank you first of all for having me on the show, and thank you for the congratulations. It was a crazy night. It was of course every fight. It's one of the best nights of my life. Come out with a win, fairly unscathed. Doesn't go much better than that.
Man, it's awesome because we love the guys at Toshido, and I was interviewing David Lee, the head coach at Toshido, after that event, and he was singing the praises about how Toshido did so well at that event. And I was looking at it, and he goes, "Yeah, we won 9 out of 10 fights. We're the highest." And I'm looking at him, going, "Who did he beat? Oh, look at that! It's Tom O'Connor who beat the guy." And I'm like, "Man, that has been a sort of a thing of your career. You're kind of always the guy that comes in and does upsets." But before we get into that kind of thing, we'll talk a little bit chronologically about you growing up and your journey into the martial arts. But before we get into that, I have to come clean about an interview we did in 2014 before this Sam King fight, because I tried to set you up. This was the Sam King Tom O'Connor fight, and Sam King was our guy. We wanted him to win, and Tom just came in to fight him. And I sat there, and you didn't seem to be someone who you seemed more like a kickboxer and a wrestler. And I was like, you know what? I bet you if we ask him about the belt system and Sam being a higher belt, he'll try to disrespect it. And I remember asking you the question in the interview, and you were like, no, so classy. You just ruined it for me, man. You're like, "Oh no, we respected it." I was like, "Why can't you say something bad so people can hate you?" But I want to say, Data, it was awesome, and every time that you've done something, even your interview at the end, it was classy, and I love that about you.
I apologize for ruining the setup, but I think without going back to kind of the personality I have and going over that too much with my fight, I think that kind of goes along with it. Is I'm not great at trash talking in the first place, so it's not something that's a big part of it. I got respect for all my opponents because I can't do it without them, right? You can't fight in there by yourself. I'm not dancing and fighting, so I need the other person. And then I think, that kind of plays into that upset thing. Is people sometimes I don't treat myself as the big tough guy around anywhere, right? I'm not going around being the toughest guy in the streets or anything like that. So I think sometimes fights I get not overlooked, but I'm the underdog a lot of the time. And I think the two play together. I sometimes people underestimate me because maybe I'm kind or I'm not there to trash talk.
Yeah, and that was awesome because I gave you every opportunity to say something negative, and you were awesome. And I was like, "Damn it, this guy's classy." It
might have been half class, half over my head,
Yeah, you had a fight to do. You didn't really care too much about the interview. Awesome. So, that's great. Congratulations on the win. It's great to see you move ahead like that. And I just got to clarify something. Do you typically dance alone? Is that? You said you need someone in there to fight, but if you're not dancing.
Yeah, good call. if I'm dancing, I'm such a bad dancer. I make sure it's behind closed doors. So yeah, it's alone. It's all alone.
All right.
My own girlfriend see me dance.
All right, man. We're having too much fun here. So let's take me back a little bit to you growing up in Alberta and your parents there, what they sort of did, and your journey into athletics, and then finding martial arts.
Well, I have pretty around these parts pretty common upbringing. My parents are both happily married, still are, and they've been around every step of the way. They've kind of motivated me and my brothers and sisters for everything we do, and they push us to be the best versions of ourselves since I was little. Growing up, I started playing hockey when I was quite young, which is funny because my dad is from New Zealand, so he had no clue how to skate at all. I started day one, he started, and he, of course, was worse than me. So I didn't learn skating from him, but he had friends that he worked with that would come out and help me skate and teach me how to play hockey. And then I was always around a big, my family is a close-knit group, and then we have friends that are same thing, they're within family, right? So we have a big group like that where we're all supporting each other. Playing hockey, playing rugby was my big thing, was with my dad. He from New Zealand played a lot of rugby, so that was all of my siblings, we've all played rugby from a very young age.
Is your background New Zealand? Are you Kiwi?
I'm half Kiwi. Yeah, my dad's from New Zealand. My mom's from Alberta, literally from Fort Macleod. My mom was a nurse, a practicing nurse. She doesn't do that anymore, but she was a nurse. So when she finished nursing school, she went to New Zealand for holidays and then drug my dad back here to -30.
So he must have been in love.
Yeah, all of that crazy in love. Yeah, too.
Wow. So I didn't realize that you're half Kiwi. So that's awesome. Do you do the Haka?
Yeah, I like to. Yeah, I like to do it a little bit. I did it for rugby a bit. You actually have to get licensing from the New Zealand government to do it in sport and kind of in the show in public. So I haven't done it that much, but a little bit here and there. I definitely love it. Definitely one of my favorite fighters is Robert Whittaker right now. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, he's great. And
I'm not doing the Haka. Why has someone not told him to do that?
I think his knee's a little bit sore.
Yeah, you need good knees.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I had the opportunity to see the All Blacks play here when they were in Vancouver, and you just go for that. You know, they're playing Team Canada, so it wasn't much of a game, but it was amazing to see that, and that speaks to the fighting spirit. Because when beating Sam King is quite a feat. That fight was amazing. I remember being there to that. And if there were odds makers out there, you were probably a 4-1 underdog.
Yeah.
And when we watched that fight over and over, we were like, wow, this guy's really good. And I know Sam's happy to see your level of success now. And we just interviewed him a little while ago, and he talked about it. We talked about his return to competition and how much that he congratulated you, but thought maybe he'd want to come and get you at 155.
Yeah, man, I'm always game for it. Of course, Sam is a great guy and an awesome competitor. He rides or dies by competition, right? You need to feed that guy pushes it hard. So I'd like to fight him again in the future. I mean, I can't see what the future holds, but I would definitely game for it.
Awesome. So let's okay. Thank you for that. Let's go back to growing up. Your dad and your mom are in you're in Alberta, and you're playing rugby. And how do you get into martial arts?
So yeah, I was never much of a fighter. You know, you say fighter lover. I was like much more on the side of, hey, friends, if you're in a fight, like I'll buy you a drink. We don't need to fight, right? And so I just loved competition. I loved hockey and rugby, and I loved every sport for that matter. But I played those two, and just that competitive spirit of me pushing myself to make sure I don't just beat everyone else, I beat myself. You know, you're constantly trying to be the best version of yourself, and I really love how athletics and sports has that at the front of the charge. Like you're trying to become the best version of yourself. And so I fell in love with sports at a young age. Even as a little kid, I always wanted to be. I never had a set out. I didn't want to be in the NHL. I just wanted to be a professional athlete, which is the funniest thing, right? Is like I never thought about fighting ever. But I wanted to be a professional athlete. I'd play after supper. I'd play for hours, literally hours, in my garage on roller skates and a stick. And I like dancing with myself, be playing a full hockey game against myself. I'd have every single player listed from the Colorado Avalanche versus Detroit. And, you know, I'd be skating. I'm this guy, I'm this guy, I'm this guy, I'm this guy. And there'd be dust throughout the entire garage from the rollerblades. I'd be coughing. My mom would come in to tell me to come in, coughing and have to leave because of the dust, right? So I've always loved sports. And after high school, I played a little bit of rugby, but Alberta doesn't have a very competitive male. They don't have much of a after high school rugby for men, unless you're playing with Team Canada. There's not any collegiate or university rugby for men. So I was playing beer league rugby, which was a fun time. But, I mean, half the team cares about drinking, half the team cares about winning. And when you're not showing up, like, actually, I watched Sam's interview, and he made a good point, which I agree with so much, is the thing about team sports is you're doing everything the best you can, but it doesn't always come down to just you, right? Like, the whole team has to win as a team and you lose as a team. Well, martial arts, your team prepares you to be the best version of yourself, but it's you, and it's only you on that night. So I did fall in love with that, but after rugby, it was not very competitive. I was sick of it. I was missing competition, and I was in school and I was partying, and I've always been kind of the crazy mentality of just everything full pedal to the metal, like do anything to the fullest. And so I was partying, and that goes right along with that. I was partying really hard, and maybe not focused in any, I wasn't really focused in any area. I was just doing school because that's what you do after high school. I was working a little bit and partying, right? And there was no focus, there was no drive. And I was sick of it, and I felt I need to do something. So I went to do a kickboxing class just for fun, for fitness, and I started that. And then Brad Wall, 3 months later, told me I had a fight in 2 weeks. I didn't, he's like, yeah, got you a fight. It's 2 weeks away. Boom, first fight happened. I've been addicted since.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So two things. One thing is, if you see the interview that Lee Mean and I did, he always wanted to be a professional athlete too, and he wanted to be a professional swimmer. And so that I changed. That's interesting. So you guys have a similar quality trait that way, which is interesting. Second, my guess is that you probably earned the nickname the Big Nasty before you found kickboxing.
Yes.
But I don't. That's just some research that I've been doing that we won't have to talk about, but right on. Yeah. And so you start getting into fights, and what's crazy, and this is always this turning point, is you're talking about your first fight that Brad finds with you, and that's Ryan Rahovich, who's been on our show. We're trying to get him another interview.
My first amateur fight was a guy named Taylor Macklin. He was in Montana amateur fight, but yeah.
What was your amateur record?
My amateur record was 5-0.
Right, and then you're 7-1 as a pro. 8-1, yeah, because of the win you just had. Yeah. Okay, so that's good, and what? So that starts happening. That's interesting. You and Sam kind of had the same sort of thing, and he was 6-0 and 7-0 as an amateur, and then had one loss, and then I think he 2 losses, and then faced you. But yeah, it's interesting how similar.
That was a really interesting fight actually for me too, because I had come out of my amateur, which I had a similar record to him, 5-0. I think you're right. He was either 6-0 or 7-0, and I didn't have a lot of hype behind me by any means, and I had won those, and then went to pro, and I lost my first fight, like you mentioned, against Ryan Rahovic at XFFC, and from there I was of course super motivated, right, and kept pushing.
So let's go to
when I fought Sam.
Yeah, Tom, let's go to that point, because I'll just be honest. I think when I was training jiu-jitsu, I had a grappling match at an event at a bar in Calgary, and I fought one of Brian Bird's guys, Grady, and we ended up getting a restart, and he ended up tapping me with an armbar, and I didn't ever go back into competition and fight again, and I don't know. You never know if that's other things that are happening, but I kind of fell in love, moved to Vancouver, and you still always get involved in it, but never really got back to that level. So that's interesting. How do you realize you're 5-0, and then all of a sudden you hit this loss? What happens inside of you? Is there something that you have to deal with mentally when it happens, or are you like, just keep moving forward like a Maori?
Yeah, I definitely have the mentality of just, keep moving forward. But I think it's one of two. I think when you lose, and especially it's not the same in other sports, a loss is, okay, no matter what, we bounce back the next day. The whole group of us, we're going to get back to the drawing board. But in MMA, it's a different thing, because you get back to the drawing board, but how it affects you mentally, like you say, like that is a big thing in combat sports. It's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. You take a loss and you start to question, is the risk worth it now? I love training it. You can still learn it. You don't have to fight to train it, right? Mm-hmm. So the passion to learn martial arts, it can be there outside of competing. But that mental game, does it get broken when you get a loss, or does it get stronger? And I think that's an interesting thing with losses. But with the Ryan Rahovic loss, I lost, and immediately I need to be back in the gym Monday, because I'm not going to let that happen again. He caught me with a good, hard, straight right or straight left. I'm not sure what stance he was in, but hard straight. And as I walked back, I shot for a takedown out of instinct. Yeah. Snatched the neck, right? And so another thing I love about MMA is, like, the sport is so vast, and you can do so many things within a fight. There's so many answers and counters to everything that your opponent does. The options are endless, but you make that one mistake and it's over. So looking back at the drawing board there, I was just like, I'm not going to let that ever happen again. If someone gets my neck, I'm doing this, this, and this, done.
Yeah. For someone, I love that story. For someone who has the nickname that you do, that's kind of a wild kid. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that that loss made you realize that there's an important time in a fight where you have to mitigate your risk, and there's a point there where you can't be a wild, crazy guy until the timing's right, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's be wild and crazy off the start to freak them out or push them or make them mentally break, right? Or sometimes it's be calm and collected. And no, that fight was really good that way. Is I was just going with I was riding the wave of winning fights, and I was like, I never thought I'd be here, an MMA fighter, right? And I'm doing this, and I get in there, and I just love it, and the fists are being thrown, and the intensity is so high, your adrenaline is pumping, and all of that I was loving, and I'm winning, and everything's going great, and then you lose, and you're like, oh, this is the other end of it, and it's a lot less appealing sometimes, right? But after the loss, yeah, it like just like you said, I just was like, I just need to keep on keeping on. Next thing, let's get better.
Yeah, and it's such an important thing. People talk about grit. They talk about the importance of seeing a loss as an opportunity to learn, which immediately you're talking about, and then to progress forward. I don't know if you met Jan Stein or if you know his story, but he shattered his leg, and for 2 years he walked around the cane, and he was a black belt, or he was a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was a wrestling coach, and he woke up one day and he talked to his doctor for a year, and he said, I can't work and I can't train in the same day. I could do one or the other. So he said, I'm cutting my leg off.
Crazy.
So he cut his leg off, and now he's a carded athlete for the Special Olympics and a world champion in long jump.
Whoa.
So, and I asked him, I said to him, you know, how do you mentally prepare for that? And he's like, yeah. And he's just like, man, I just knew I had too much pain. I had to do something. And it's like, I didn't know I was mentally strong. I just knew every day you could progress forward and every day you can get better. And I was just like, is it that simple? And he's like, you know, so because that's a crazy thing to think about, you know, and to see where you are. But I digress. We're talking about other things. So you get into martial arts in your fights. And is there anything that you draw on, if we talk about, you know, the Maori spirit or the New Zealand, that when you get into a loss that you sit back and kind of you've learned from either your coaching team or people in your life, maybe your family, that helps you through those times? Or is it just all of a sudden, you know, I didn't need help, I just knew I had the drive to go forward?
I think a lot of times it is the family support, and I have a really incredible support system. Everyone around me, they support me, and I'm going to give every ounce of myself to support them and to do the best I can, so their support is valid, right? But in that case, with the loss specifically to Reiner Hovik, I think it was more of kind of what you said. Is I was kind of being this wild guy, and like I just was riding the wave and loving what I was doing. And I was being, you know, big nasty, but I wasn't thinking about what goes with actually being an MMA athlete. It's one thing to be a lower level fighter, but as you keep going up and you start facing guys that are there and their mind is strong and they want to win just as bad as you do, you start to realize, okay, I'm not just doing this for fun. It's a lifestyle. So after that fight, I still started to focus more on it being a lifestyle. I put all my diet in order. I'm training not just to have a workout here and there and get a sweat. I'm training specifically to become the best version of myself as an MMA athlete as I can. I put everything in my life, you know, between my girlfriend, my family, everything I do, I am doing to try and make me better and my community better so they can continue to support me. And it kind of just showed me like to take it as do the discipline, follow the lifestyle, take it as I'm a professional athlete and this is my life. I'm not just doing MMA for fun. I'm doing it to be the best in the world, right? So that loss really taught me that it's a lifestyle and not just a fun here and there sport.
I love it. And we hear that, and that's almost like a magic statement or a blanket statement that says, I live the lifestyle. And I'm like, tell me about your morning routine. Tell me about exactly what the lifestyle is for Tom.
So right now it's a little shooken with I have a concussion, so I'm dealing with that and going through that. But apart from that, my daily routine typically is I wake up and I do fitness and strength and conditioning for adults, strength and conditioning for kids, specifically hockey teams and hockey athletes for my job. And then I do teaching martial arts on the side apart from that. So outside of work, I'll usually get up and I'll run the dogs and take the dogs for a run. I like to, when I'm in really good form, I like to do a cold shower to start. So I start the morning with a cold shower, take any of the supplements you need. Typically my diet, I like lemon water with my fish oils right in the morning. Boom, done. From there, I'll go after my run in my ice shower, my cold shower. I will like to do a little bit of some sort of movement towards either jujitsu, kickboxing, whether it's 15 minutes of shadow boxing or 15 minutes of skipping, or even just maybe flow jujitsu moves, whether I'm shrimping and getting up into mount on a punching bag or any of that. I'll do for 15 to 20 minutes, fairly light, and then I'll take a warm shower if I still have time before going to work, or I'll just get my food and my lunch packed for the day, and then I'll go. Typically, I have a morning private lesson, and then I'll come home for lunch, same thing, hang out with the dogs, get everything organized for the afternoon, and then I work the afternoon. Right now during hockey season, anywhere from 1 o'clock till 8 or 3 o'clock till 8, and I'll do that, and then afterwards I go and get another training session in.
That's awesome. Did I hear this right, that just recently you had 14 dogs hanging out at your house?
Yeah, you did hear that right. 2 full grown and 12 puppies. It was actually in the fight camp. It was part of my fight training for Chris Day is watch your ankles from these little demons. But no, it definitely it was a bit of a bonus as you do a hard day of training and you're in fight camp and you're literally working hard and you're sweating and you're ready to just go home, and you get home and you know you got to clean up poop and feed the dogs, and you get in there, you think it's heavy, but by the time you get in there, they're so happy that it's hard to have a bad day, right? It's a great way to end the day. Go and get puppy therapy.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I when I heard that, I was like 14. That's unmanageable.
It was unmanageable is a good word for it.
But and it sounds like they all got to good homes.
Yeah, all we kept one of them, so we have 2 dogs now, and then a little puppy that we're raising. All 11 of the puppies all went to good homes, so that was awesome.
How do you decide to name or recognize? That's
you're
giving them away.
We started by naming them, and then they start to just mix, so you get them colors and just make it easy. You know, we do 1, 2, 3, 4, or blue, red, orange.
Those poor dogs, just numbers and colors, eh? No personality. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Well, they formed their personality. Don't you worry.
Didn't matter what color they were.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. So this is all good stuff. But you just talked to me about concussion that happened in training.
Yeah, it happened after the Chris Day fight in training. I'm not sure if not getting into too much detail. I've never had a concussion serious enough that I've had to step away from anything. I mean, I've played contact sports, rugby and hockey, and with all the research and information coming about concussions and traumatic brain injury and CET in the NFL and hockey and sports that have a bit more viewers, it's becoming such a big thing. But of course, it's obviously a huge issue to take into consideration with MMA and boxing, right? Is you're in one sport, you're getting into collisions, but you don't have someone trying to take your head off. So it changes that. With this, it happened in training, but I'm wondering now that I've done some research if maybe I had a smaller concussion before. But yeah, I've noticed it since. I'm feeling pretty good now, though. Everything's healing up. Yeah. Just last bit of.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see the amount of research and money now going into it from the NFL, because that's going to come over into MMA and it's going to help with it. When you start watching pro athletes like Junior Seau, who was, when I was playing football as a linebacker, he was a hero of mine who shoots himself in the head because he can't stop the sound in his head because of concussions. That's a situation where you're like, oh, and then it happens over and over and over again, and they're really, really bad situations. It's good to see guys taking care of it. Matt Fedler, who was on the show and is doing a lot of stuff, got out of fighting after his first win because of that. And his dream was always to be a professional fighter and to move in that, but he's also got leadership skills and is moving into politics as we see him do that stuff. So it's a real concern, and I'm glad. And I remember in football, I remember being knocked unconscious tackling a guy once, but they said that even in this is probably similar to rugby, if not more. If you practiced every single day, you likely had a minor concussion when you're hitting head on head the whole time. So I'm a goner. There's no question about it. I do that every day. Just I sit my head against the wall every day without a helmet now. So, but yeah, it's something. And you know what? I think it's going to get a lot better. All technology get better. And I think for MMA fighters, it's not as bad as it is at the pro levels of football because gloves are smaller. But
and I think just too, like the awareness. I think part of it is like I'm saying, they're trying to take your head off, but also the fact that because they're doing that, you're aware, you're doing all these extra things to protect your head. Versus football, they're not thinking of that; they're thinking tackle, right? And so the awkward positions you get into with your neck and things, I think, is a little more dangerous. But
yeah, unfortunately, you want to make sure the ref is close to you at all times or close to your opponent, because if you got to put a guy away and you're already in motion and he's out already, and you got to throw the other punch, you don't want to put the double damage on. And so I love it when I see guys
respectfully
throw a punch, know that he's pretty much out, could jump on it, and they just pull back and they'll take position and then they'll wait for a ref.
Yeah, you can tell when someone's an intelligent striker of some sort, because they know when they hit someone hard enough and they hurt them, it's not, you don't have to finish right away. It's like, oh, if I already hurt him with that, I can do that again. Oh, he's done anyways. You're good. Like the famous Mark Hunt walkaways, hey?
Yeah. Oh, he's amazing. Well, and then also I've seen it 3 times in watching fights and actually commentating a fight where a guy hit a guy, knocked him out, hit him again, woke him back up.
Yeah.
And ref didn't catch it, and the other guy won the fight. Yeah, oh, you shouldn't have punched him twice and woke him back up. And they're like, I can't even believe that happened. But that's something that can happen as well, right?
It does, yeah. Where you just leave them and maybe they're so disorientated that you call the fight, right?
No, he was clearly unconscious.
Happens
and he hit him, and he woke up and he got up and won the fight.
And then, it's so funny because like, they wake up and their instincts go to something. So the ref's like, oh, okay, I got to let this play out. Right?
Yeah. Well, then you'll also see those guys also shoot the double on a ref, take him down and keep fighting. So it's good to see you taking care of yourself and doing that. I mean, you got the title right now, so that's perfect. Hey, listen, you talked about your support system, your family and your girlfriend, and I'm always curious about it because I find that when I talk to fighters and athletes of a certain type, there's often this point in their life where sometimes it's a difficult moment. Like a lot of people have you got a great upbringing with your family and your parents, where there's something that they're just not satisfied with, or they got a chip on their shoulder, or they've got something to prove. Was there anything like that when you decided to become a fighter?
Yeah, something I don't really talk about a lot, but definitely had a bit of that. Is like I have a really good relationship with my dad, and we're very close. But he's you're asking about family and support system, and it's like some of the things that they've taught me, and one of the big things that the whole entire family has taught me, and all of them represent it very well, is to work hard. And whatever you're gonna do, make sure you work hard at it, because it's not worth doing if you're not willing to put your time in. And because of that, growing up, my dad, he owned a construction company. So I worked for him for quite a few years, and in that construction company, and because the boss is your father, and a lot of some employees and whatnot would assume you just you got there because of that, right? And you didn't work for it. And so kind of coming up through end of high school and after high school, and when I'm partying a lot, I had a lot of trouble with that. And I'd sometimes get into fights with people kind of saying shit and talking shit about I didn't deserve to be anywhere because I've just gotten there because I got handouts from him. And so things like that, it used to bother me a lot. And I mean, now it doesn't, because I make sure I've always, because I've been taught to work hard, I've tried to always make sure I am working hard and really pushing myself to be the best I can. And I'm thankful that they taught me that lesson, but that definitely was a struggle. So there was some time there where I definitely had a bit of resistance towards some of the support system, and just like I wanted to kind of be on my own to prove I could be. And so there was a time where I definitely had troubles with that, but it's past now for that sense.
Were you fighting when that happened, or did fighting become an outlet for that kind of like?
I would say it was in the time that I started fighting. I was still in that phase where I was trying to prove that I can do things on my own, and that I'm not a printout of my dad, but I can kind of earn my own keep, whatnot. And so when I first started, that was a big motivating factor for me to work hard in the gym. And I used to work as a recreational therapist at an old folks home. So I would do actually recreational therapist and janitor. So I'd work hours there, and I'd finish at 5 o'clock in Fort Macleod, drive the half hour to Lethbridge. So I'd get there for 5:30 classes, and I'd train from 5:30 till 9, come home at 9. So I'd get home at 9:30, 10, and then I would work out from 10 till midnight and go home at midnight, and at the gym in Fort Macleod. So when I was working that 10 o'clock, that 2-hour window of working out on my own down in what I used to call the dungeon, because the Fort Macleod gym used to be this grungy old room. You go into the chiropractic center and go downstairs, and it was just old brick with cobwebs, creaky stairs. You'd be in there at night working out, and all you'd hear is sounds from a horror movie, right? So
Halloween every workout session.
Yeah, everyone's doing their workouts fast enough to get out of there so they're not going to get murdered. But no, so I used to go to the dungeon late at night, and I'd put in a lot of work there, and it was a good. Looking back, trying to prove myself that I could earn my own keep, and I wasn't just my dad, and that my dad would be proud of me for working hard. Trying to do that, it ended up motivating me to work harder for my workouts. So.
I love that story, man, and thank you for telling it. I mean, I don't think I asked the question directly about the most valuable lesson that you learned from your family, but when you say hard work and being able to deal with the things that people maybe say about you that just aren't true, and being able to get there and have an outlet for that. Because some people just gonna think what they're gonna think, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, another thing you learn from that is like, what they can think what they want. Let action be your words.
Yeah, you can think it, but I can prove to you that that's not the case. Exactly. Here's the data. Yeah, so that's awesome. Anything else? Anything else in the past, or anything else about your family? Well, what about? I always love to talk about fighters and their girlfriends, and the Cleveland Bentley is fun to talk to because of his relationship with Sarah, UFC fighter Sarah Moraes, and how their relationship, because when they're both dieting or when stuff's happening, you're like, you can see, you can feel it when they talk about it. It's important to have a supportive girlfriend, correct?
Yeah, it's incredible. And especially like to have a girlfriend support you in MMA is a tough thing, right? It's a really tough thing. But because like you're putting so much time into it, sometimes they don't get to see you much. They don't got much time with you, and that hurts a relationship. So for someone to just kind of put the hangout time on the back pedal and just be like, no, you got to work now. And she always is there for me to say, Tom, go work. If I'm being lazy, Tom, stop being lazy, get off your ass, go work. If I'm perfect example with concussion, fighters, we want to be chomping at the bit and working our ass off all the time. And sometimes it's a little bit tricky with an injury, and you're trying to heal from an injury, and you're like, nah, screw it, I'm going to work anyways. And that is another thing, another voice of reason. She is always, no, you have to heal now. You have to go work out now. You have to really push yourself. And she's there for me in that sense really well. Food and diet, she's on top of. She does the best cooking ever. You can't beat her cooking, so that's awesome. She's the best partner I could ask for in that sense.
Man,
she also is a little bit on the crazy end of like, she won't take shit, right? So if I'm BSing, and she's not afraid to punch me just because I'm a fighter, we'll put on the gloves. And she does kickboxing. She's a kickboxing athlete, and she's been an athlete her whole life too. So she's not afraid to, hey, Tom, put on the gloves, right?
Nice. It's amazing in the world that we live in today how important it is to have a support system that will tell you when you're not doing something appropriately. And I think that in this world of cell phones and positive serotonin all the time, we need this positive stuff coming all the time. And I can talk about positive stuff, but there's probably 3 guys, maybe 5 in my life that will call me up and they go like, hey man, you should shave. Like, or something like that. You know what I mean? I'd be like, what are you doing? Yeah, so I'm probably getting texts right now, but it's funny how the bad things, if you don't have those people in your life, how self-deluded you can end up being. Case in point, Donald Trump seems to be so ridiculous because he has yes men all around him, and you're like, man, you got to have someone there telling you when you're being an idiot, and then you got to listen to him.
Yeah, and you got to have someone that can say it the right way, right? And sometimes it's put politely, and sometimes it's just blunt and, hey, you're being an idiot. And,
Yeah.
and that's what it hits, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have those people that word it right.
Yeah. Now I got to go return some text. I
Yeah.
really appreciate. Hey, Tom, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this interview with me, and best of luck in future fights. And man, it's an honor to have you on the show, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, brother.
Well.
Hey guys, thanks so much for your support of fighters, coaches, and fathers. If you liked what you saw, subscribe by clicking the button on the left. And if you want some more, check out my interview with Sam King, one of Tom O'Connor's toughest fights.